The choking Doberman. A woman returned from work and found her large dog, a Doberman, lying on the floor gasping for air. Concerned over the animal's welfare, she immediately loaded the pet into her car and drove him to a veterinarian. The vet examined the dog, but finding no reason for his breathing difficulties, announced that he'd have to perform a tracheotomy and insert tubes down the animal's throat so he could breathe. He explained that it wasn't anything she'd want to watch and urged the woman to go home and leave the Doberman there overnight. When the woman returned home, the phone was ringing off the hook. She answered it and was surprised to discover it was the vet. Even more surprising was his message: get out of the house immediately. Go to the neighbors and call the police. It seems that when the vet performed the operation, he found a very grisly reason for the dog's breathing difficulty. 3 human fingers were lodged in its throat. Concerned that the person belonging to the dismembered fingers might still be in the house, he phoned to warn the woman. According to the story, police arrived at her house and found an unconscious intruder, sans fingers, lying in a closet. Fatal hairdo. Years ago, when the beehive hairstyle was all the rage, a female teen got tired of spending hours for the creation and upkeep of the latest beehive do. Instead of ratting and teasing her hair endlessly, then applying the appropriate and expensive hair products of the time in order to make her beehive behave as it should, she found a quicker, longer-lasting way to make the hive harden and thus be fashionable. What the teen started doing on a regular basis was to wash her hair in an application of inexpensively mixed sugar water, then allowed the sugar water to dry and harden in exactly the style she wanted. She then had to sleep with a towel wrapped a certain way about her hair, and she also slept on a specially sized half pillow overnight to ensure that her locks were undisturbed. But the towel and pillow were just minor inconveniences in order to attain the elaborate beehive hairstyle the teen wanted each day. One morning, however, her mother missed her at the breakfast table and so went to the teen's room to rouse her for the morning meal. What the mother found was horrendous. Her daughter was dead right in her bed, her hair and face covered with bugs. It is unclear whether the bugs smothered her as she slept or stung her to death in the night, but one thing is certain. When the teen's body was removed from the home and prepared for burial, the coroner had to shave off all her hair and place a wig on the teen because so many bugs were nested in her locks. Version: vain male teen. A hip and cool teen guy was looking for a shorter, new hairstyle that would be more impressive than his current dread cornrow do. He was thinking that, summertime and all, he'd like to get a finely shaved pattern made to an almost clean-shaved head. This would grow back, of course, in a really cool pattern in a few weeks, look splendid throughout the summer, but his hair would grow back in several weeks before school began in the fall. In the fall, right before classes would start, the cool teen would be able to decide upon another fashionable, if not short, hairstyle, if necessary, with which to impress the girls on the first day of classes. Proud of his own foresight in the matter, the cool teen headed off to his fave hairdresser shop to get his cornrows cut off. Nearly at once, the hairdresser had difficulty getting clippers through the cool guy's cornrows. After a few attempts, the hairdresser decided to snip the cornrows off, then use the clippers afterward. This would be an extra step in the process of cutting and styling, but was the best way to handle the problem. The hairdresser had to pull out a drastically large pair of scissors, the right size necessary for the job at hand, and began to cut into the cornrows. Soon, and only seconds after the process began, the teen began to writhe uncomfortably, then to scream. The hairdresser was only halfway through cutting a major bundle of dreadlocks and thought the teen was hamming it up, messing around about losing his dreads. The hairdresser told the teen to chill out and hold still, but the teen trembled and kept screaming, then finally bolted from the chair and out the door. The cool guy's girlfriend went to visit him later in the day, but found him dead only a few hours after he bolted from the hairdresser's shop. Days later, the coroner's report stated that red-backed spiders were infesting his hair, that it appeared there was a nest tangled in his locks, close to his scalp. It can be assumed that what happened when the hairdresser began to cut into the teen's hair, the nest of red-backed spiders became furiously agitated and started biting at that time. The spiders literally bit the teen to death. The knife and duct tape. Version 1. A woman pulls into a gas station to fill her tank. While the attendant pumped gas, she told him she was in a rush to see her daughter. She was going to pick her up from school. A man, who was dressed very well, walked over to her car and began to chat with her. He explained how his car had died on him and he was headed north for an appointment. The woman just so happened to be going the same way, so she offered him a ride. He needed to make a quick stop in the men's room, so he placed his briefcase in the back seat. The woman glanced at the clock and realized she was running late. She quickly pulled off, totally forgetting about the man she had promised a ride to. Her main focus was to pick her daughter up on time. She didn't remember the man until she saw the briefcase in the back. She felt horrible for forgetting about him. She quickly opened the briefcase so she could find some information on how to find him. The only thing she found inside, though, was a knife and a roll of duct tape. Version 2. A young lady was leaving the mall only to find that her car had a flat tire. A well-dressed man with a briefcase walked up to her and asked if he could help her. She didn't want to be a bother, so she told him she would just call AA. They told her she would have to wait a little over an hour just for a truck to come out. The man insisted that he would be able to help her fix it. Not wanting to have to waste any more of her time, she agreed. Once he finished, he asked if she could drive him to the other side of the mall where his car was parked. Glancing at her watch, she told him she couldn't because she was already late to get home. It was her daughter's birthday. The man accepted her answer and left. When the woman returned home, she told her husband everything that had happened. The husband went out to check the tire and saw that the man had left his briefcase in the back. The husband brought it in the house and opened it to see if he could find information on the man to find him. There were 5 items in the briefcase: a rag, chloroform, duct tape, a body bag, and an ice pick. Version 3. A woman was leaving the mall after her shopping spree to go home. She loaded her bags into the trunk, and as she slammed it shut, she noticed an old woman by her passenger door. The old woman asks if she could have a ride home. She had been walking all day and was very tired. She didn't have a car of her own to drive. The woman tells her she would take her home. As she made her way to the driver's side, she started to feel a bit uneasy. She wasn't sure why, but something about this just didn't feel right. Once she got in the car, she looked into her purse and pretended that she had lost a credit card. She told the old woman that she would go inside to see if anyone had found it. The old lady said she would keep put. The women went inside and found a security guard. After explaining the situation to him, they went back to her car. The passenger door was wide open and the lady was gone. In the seat was a bag the old lady had been carrying. Inside was the old woman's dress and a gray wig, along with a butcher's knife and a roll of duct tape. This version is a bit different from the other 2, but they still have a person who plans to murder a young woman. The killer in the window. This girl was home all alone watching TV on a cold winter night. The television was right beside a sliding glass door and the blinds were open. Suddenly she saw a wrinkled old man staring at her through the glass. She screamed, then grabbed the phone next to the couch and pulled a blanket over her head so the guy couldn't see her while she called the police. She was so terrified that she remained under the blanket until the police got there. It had snowed a lot during the day, so the police naturally decided to look for footprints. But there were no footprints at all on the snowy ground outside the sliding door. Puzzled, the police went back inside the house, and that's when they saw the wet footprints on the floor leading up to the couch where the girl was still sitting. The policemen looked at each other nervously. "Miss, you're extremely lucky," one of them finally said to her. "Why?" she asked. "Because," he said, "the man wasn't outside at all. He was in here, standing right behind the couch. What you saw in the window was his reflection." The premature burial. My great-great-grandmother, ill for quite some time, finally passed away after lying in a coma for several days. My great-great-grandfather was devastated beyond belief, as she was his one true love and they had been married over 50 years. They were married so long it seemed as if they knew each other's innermost thoughts. After the doctor pronounced her dead, my great-great-grandfather insisted that she was not. They had to literally pry him away from his wife's body so they could ready her for burial. Now, back in those days they had backyard burial plots and did not drain the body of its fluids. They simply prepared a proper coffin and committed the body, in its coffin, to its permanent resting place. Throughout this process, my great-great-grandfather protested so fiercely that he had to be sedated and put to bed. His wife was buried, and that was that. That night he woke to a horrific vision of his wife hysterically trying to scratch her way out of the coffin. He phoned the doctor immediately and begged to have his wife's body exhumed. The doctor refused, but my great-great-grandfather had this nightmare every night for a week, each time frantically begging to have his wife removed from the grave. Finally, the doctor gave in and, together with local authorities, exhumed the body. The coffin was pried open, and to everyone's horror and amazement, my great-great-grandmother's nails were bent back and there were obvious scratches on the inside of the coffin. Carmen Winstead. She was pushed. About 6 years ago in Indiana, Carmen Winstead was pushed down a sewer opening by 5 girls in her school, trying to embarrass her in front of her school during a fire drill. When she didn't submerge, the police were called. They went down and brought up 17-year-old Carmen Winstead's body. The neck broke hitting the ladder, then side concrete at the bottom. The girls told everyone she fell. They believed them. Fact, 2 months ago, 16-year-old David Gregory read this post and didn't repost it. When he went to take a shower, he heard laughter from his shower. He started freaking out and ran to his computer to repost it. He said goodnight to his mom and went to sleep. 5 hours later, his mom woke up in the middle of the night because of a loud noise. David was gone. That morning, a few hours later, the police found him in the sewer. His neck broke and his face skin peeled off. If you don't repost this saying, she was pushed, or they pushed her down a sewer, then Carmen will get you either from a sewer, the toilet, the shower, or when you go to sleep you'll wake up in the sewer, in the dark, then Carmen will come and kill you. The Bell Witch. It has been called America's greatest ghost story, and it happened right here in Tennessee. In the decades since the witch or spirit first manifested around the Bell family on their farm in Robertson County in the early 19th century, the Bell Witch has attracted the attention of ghost hunters, skeptics, supernaturalists, religious leaders, storytellers, authors, historians, and curious citizens from all over the world. Earlier sources of the Bell Witch legend are dubious at best, but provide a terrific look into the pervasiveness of the legend and the progression of the Bell Witch story through the years. The 2 most famous sources: an authenticated history of the famous Bell Witch by M.V. Ingram, published in 1894, and A Mysterious Spirit, The Bell Witch of Tennessee by Charles Bailey Bell, are essentially the same narrative, differing only in detail and style. Both these sources tell a fascinating story of the supernatural and provide the basis for much of the Bell Witch folklore. The Bell family. John Bell was born in Halifax County, North Carolina in 1750, the son of William Bell and Ann Jones. In 1782, John Bell married Lucy Williams, daughter of prominent farmer John Williams of Edgecombe County, North Carolina. The Bells bought a farm in Edgecombe County and began amassing wealth and influence in the area. In 1804, the family, consisting of John and Lucy Bell, and their children Jesse, John Jr., Drury, Benjamin, Esther, Zadok, Elizabeth, Richard Williams, and Joel Egbert, built a house and started a farm on 1,000 acres, located on the Red River in Robertson County, Tennessee. Of their children, Benjamin died as a young child. Zadok became a prominent lawyer and moved to Mississippi, where he also died relatively young. Esther married Bennett Porter in 1817. Jesse married Martha Gunn, daughter of Reverend Thomas Gunn, and later moved to Mississippi. John Bell Jr. married Elizabeth Gunn, also daughter of Reverend Thomas Gunn, and became a successful farmer in Robertson County. Drury never married and owned a farm on the north side of the Red River. Elizabeth Betsy Bell eventually married her former teacher Richard Powell and moved to Mississippi. Richard Williams Bell was married 3 times, to Sally Gunn, daughter of Reverend Thomas Gunn, Susan Gunn, daughter of Reverend James Gunn, and Eliza Orndorff. He lived out his life in Robertson County. The youngest child, Joel Egbert, married twice and moved to Springfield. Despite the lasting impact of what the Bells termed our family trouble, the family continued to flourish, and some descendants of the Bells still live in Tennessee and other southern and midwestern states. Disturbances began. The origin of the legendary Bell Witch is of course a mystery. In early accounts, the spirit itself provides its origin, stating, "I am a spirit. I once was very happy, but I have been disturbed and made unhappy. I am the spirit of a person who was buried in the woods nearby, and the grave was disturbed, my bones disinterred and scattered, and one of my teeth was lost under this house. I am here looking for that tooth." Of course, this cannot be verified. However, a number of Indian burial mounds could be found in the region. In another event, the witch claimed to be a spirit from everywhere: heaven, hell, the earth, and in the air, the houses, any place at any time, had been created millions of years. The first appearance of unusual disturbances surrounding the Bell family is usually reported as an incident on the farm in which John Bell fired a shot at a dog-like creature which vanished. Drury and Betsy also began to see strange creatures near the property. These sights are accompanied by strange sounds around the house. Betsy, Drury, and John began to hear unaccounted for knocking on the door and windows, the sound of wings flapping against the ceilings, and the sound of rats gnawing on bedposts. More disturbingly, the sound of choking and strangling could be heard, along with chains dragging and heavy objects hitting the floor. Sounds emanating from the bedroom as if beds were suddenly and roughly pulled apart, to which was added the sounds of fighting dogs chained together, making the noise deafening. In all cases, the source of the noise was never found. No rats were found in the home despite thorough searching, and no damage to the furniture was ever discovered. During these demonstrations, the family refused to speak of the events to their neighbors. The spirit increased its activity, sometimes physically abusing the members of the family. Joel, Richard Williams, and, especially, Betsy were subjected to being struck, pinched, and having their hair pulled relentlessly by the Bell Witch. Lucy Bell and John Jr. were left relatively unharmed by the witch. Lucy was proclaimed by the spirit to be the most perfect woman living, and the witch showed a great deal of compassion toward her, even caring for her and singing to her while she was ill. John Jr. had long, intense conversations with the witch, but he never failed to show his animosity for it, declaring it to be the spirit of the damned.